Hey, it's Marie Forleo, and you are listening to the Marie Forleo Podcast. Now, my guest today is an award-winning artist, creative, and entrepreneur, and his name is Chase Jarvis. Now, you might already know him as the co-founder of CreativeLive, an online education platform with more than 10 million students. And as a photographer, Chase has created campaigns for Apple, Nike, Red Bull, and so many more companies. He's also been a keynote speaker on 6 continents and a guest at the Obama White House, the United Nations, and Buckingham Palace. He lives in Seattle with his wife, Kate, and his new book, Creative Calling, is out now. My friend Chase, thank you so much for being on the Marie Forleo Podcast.
Thank you. I think it's a long-time listener, first-time caller.
Yeah.
There you go.
And what I love about this is when we texted a few weeks ago and it was like, okay, you got a book coming out, you got a book coming out, and we had our jam session about how challenging it is.
Oh my goodness.
So we have so many good things to talk about today.
Yeah, there's plenty.
But for those folks who perhaps just know of you from CreativeLive or maybe know of you from your photography career, I actually want to go back.
Go back. Take me there.
The time before college when your grandfather passed. I didn't know that story, and I read about it in your book, and I would love you to share with us what happened and how that really put you on a path to your creative calling.
I'm happy to share that, and it's easy now to share that story, but it takes there's a little bit of backstory required, and that is that as a young person, as all young people, wildly creative. You know, ask any first grade classroom who wants to come to the front of the room and draw me a picture, every hand goes up. And then slowly our culture sort of trains that out of us. We get, oh, you need to be practical, and you go into this camp and you go into, I hadn't touched any of that yet. I had just finished my first film. It was called The Sons of Zorro. I was heading into 2nd grade. My first film, we made it with a Super 8 camera. We charged admission and made more money than we'd spent. My first film was profitable at 8 years old. 8 years old, total win. So going to 2nd grade, I've got my own comic strip that I'm distributing weekly. My character's name is Clyde. I'm hand drawing everyone gifts to my classmates, performing magic. I got a stand-up routine. This is 2nd grade, right? And then I hear student teacher conference. There's an ice cream social going out. I stumble in and hear my 2nd grade teacher, Miss Kelly, tell my mom, Chase is so much better at sports than he is at art.
Oof.
And right now you're thinking, well, that poor little 8-year-old just got his little heart stomped on. But you know what? I didn't care. I was like, oh, okay, that sucks. But you know what I am going to do? I'm doing sports because I want approval. I want to fit in. And I think that's a really important story because, you know, I guess in the particular lies the universal. We all have these moments. And what I think is fascinating is for me as a kid, as much as I loved all those things, that was my universe. I was an only child. I used to just go out in the backyard and, you know, entertain myself. But we're social animals. We live in a culture that gives us all kinds of shoulds and oughts and musts, and we tend to just follow the path that everybody else wants for us. And I did that without even thinking. No grief, no, not just like boom, right on my next path. Okay, cool. And then Chase was the jock. And thank you, Miss Kelly. It was helpful. I went to college on a soccer scholarship. I played on the Olympic development team. You know, could have continued to play professionally. I was doing the things and I was fine at it. So she was right in a sense. But when my grandfather died, and this is the nature of your question, right? What was going on then? He dropped dead of a heart attack completely out of nowhere. No warning signs. He wasn't sick or ailing or had been to the doctor. Just gone. And obviously that was just a week before my college graduation, and very pivotal time. And I was in that moment. The grief was only made better momentarily, and I guess that would be the silver lining, was that I was given his cameras. He was a tinkerer. He was a photographer, and he had photographed me. He and my father were both amateurs or hobbyists, and they'd photographed my, you know, journey as a kid and all the sports that I just mentioned. And I remember being really intrigued with photography, looking at it, not because it was photographs of me, but it's like, wow, like that's a moment, and that's never going to happen again. I'm so glad I have that, and it tells a story, and I'd always felt connected and emotional around those moments and stories. But now, after basically denying my creativity for my entire youth, to suddenly have the tool for that handed to me on the backside of my grandfather's death, I sort of took it as a sign for the universe, and I had been creatively curious that whole time because I realized that I'd sort of walked away from something. I grabbed that camera, and with a little bit of money that I had gotten from his passing, some of my savings, and like a 13-stop, like red-eye ticket to Europe, I lived out of a backpack with my then girlfriend, now wife Kate, and taught myself how to take pictures with this camera.
Amazing. I mean, you thought you were going to medical school.
For sure. And this is, I think, the corollary to that story is that despite that little moment of awakening, and I think it's worth noting that these moments, these sort of, and they can be both traumatic, loss of someone close to us, or something beautiful, the birth of a child, or a new job that you've been seeking after for your entire life, or whatever, that it puts us in a place of reflection. We stop just long enough to either say what's working or what's not working. We check in, we do a body scan, we get in touch with ourselves. And for me, that was like, okay, great, I did that, and then I'm on to my next thing, which was this, this journey trying to figure out my creative self. But for me, there's a, what's the right way to take this? I had denied my creativity long enough to be open in that moment and to pursue I didn't have the end in mind, but I had this compass inside me that I just started to listen to. And when the world's telling us all these things, go back to Miss Kelly, from a very young age, and when the world was telling me, okay, if you're hardworking and you're smart, you should go to medical school, or you should be a lawyer, or you should be a all the things that we should be doing. Mm-hmm. And go back to us being social animals and wanting to fit in. I'm like, okay, I'll do those things. Now juxtapose that with this camera, this sense of adventure, and this momentary check-in and a big sort of transition point in life. For the first time, those things really stopped going together. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm supposed to do this. This is what I signed up to do, medical school, whatever. And so in that moment, I started changing. And I started changing away from all the shoulds and woulds of things. And the hardest thing in life, Marie, is that these are people that we care about that are telling us this. Yes. This is not the bully across the street. This is your mom, your brother, your teacher, your career counselor, your grandparent, your boss, your, like, fill in the blank. You respect and appreciate these people in your life. They add value. You connect with them, and they're telling you all the things you should do. But we have to have the courage to disappoint them at particular times in our life and listen to the thing that we're told to ignore our whole life for reasons of practicality and reasons of again, a million shoulds. You have a compass. Whoever's listening right now, you have a compass inside of you. You don't have a map to anything. Anything you think you have a map to, that map is wrong. Yep. There's no red dot, a bunch of dots, a bunch of dotted lines, and then an X. That doesn't exist. Anyone who tries to sell you a map is selling you BS. You have a compass. And the compass just tells you what direction to walk in. It's your job, A, to listen to that compass and listen to that voice inside of you, and then B, start walking. And that's all I did. For the first time in my young adult life, I started walking the path that I was supposed to be on and listening to that calling that I had inside. Yeah, and that's what created this incredible career. So I'm fast forwarding now. Okay. I want to talk about creative calling. Okay. You've got a lot going on. I mean, last time I saw you, anytime we connect, it's like, for most of us and for most people listening too, right? Life is full. Very full, yep. And so by design, we try and make it joyful. And, absolutely. But what inspired you to do this book, and like, why now? Where did that come from? Because you got a lot on your plate, mister. It's fair to say that we all always have a lot, and I'm a little bit trepidatious or worried about acknowledging busy as like a badge. So all qualifiers aside, and busy life and career, when you're doing the things you love, it's really easy for that to happen. And I do have the fortune of having followed my own advice at that point, listened to that compass, and created, not overnight, but through a long, arduous process. I'm truly living my dream life right now. And there's plenty of potholes and pockmarks, and it's not always pretty. But I did not want to write a book. I wanted to continue to make internet videos and help empower people to learn through CreativeLive and the other stuff that I've got in my podcast. But this idea needed to be a book, and here's why. A lot of I feel like we learn things and we take notes, and those notes come in many forms. And we learn lessons from people. And, part of my background at CreativeLive and on my podcast, talking to the top performers in the whole world, and a lot of whom are our mutual friends, the Brene Browns and Richard Bransons and Arianna Huffingtons and Tim Ferrisses and Damon Johnses. And I started seeing these patterns in both my own experiences and the experiences of my friends and peers and inspirators.
Yeah.
And I was like, these are not things that are written down. Why is that? And at the root, I started just peeling back the onion. At the root of all of it, I found were three very simple things. Simple thing number one was that every person is creative. Every person. Go back to that first grade classroom. We are creating machines. It's literally what differentiates us from every other species on the planet. So whether you're creating dinner, you're creating a family, writing computer code, building a business, it's all creativity. And we've been sold a lie that creativity equals art. But all of these things are creativity. So premise one is creativity is inside of every person. Premise two, here's the cool thing, is creativity is like a muscle. Mm-hmm. And how do you build a muscle? You use it. And Maya Angelou probably said it best, which is creativity is an infinite resource. The more you use, the more you have.
Amen.
So if you think about that as a muscle and it gets stronger with use, I'm not quite sure why you wouldn't want to use it more, especially if you start to understand the thing that I figured out way late in life and after making a bunch of wrong turns, and the thing that and so many of the people that I just mentioned who are the world's top performers know, is that creativity is this superpower that we have, that when we create in small ways every day, whether that's solving a problem, building a business, baking a cake, playing guitar, expressing ourselves, when we do that in small ways every day, we connect with this intuition and this understanding that we have agency and creativity over our entire life. And in learning all this over this, whatever my entire adult life, I'm like, there's enough complexity here. This is not an internet video. There's enough complexity here. The feature film is not necessarily the right way to go. There's enough complexity here that I need to put it in a book. And I'll do the book in 52 ways from Sunday. I'll make it so that you can read it and you can connect. There's characters in it and there's through lines. I want it to also be a reference book and a textbook. So I worked super hard on the structure of the book in order to make it consumable in bite sizes and something that maximizes your understanding of a very complex concept, which is how to create the living and the life that you love, that you want more than anything in this world, especially if you've only got one shot, which is all we got.
Yes. So let's talk about what stops us. So what stops people from being creative.
How much time you got?
Yeah. Well, I want to hit on two specific things. I think there's something awesome that you share. Actually, it's on page 79 of the book. So many folks that I meet through my work, one of the big things that stops them is the fear of being judged or criticized, especially in an environment where we're obviously encouraging folks to share their work online, which is where people comment, and there's all kinds of, feedback, we'll call it with bunny ears. I love the trick that you have to navigate this, and I want you to explain it. Calling it the work. Can you talk to us about what that means and how it can help, especially if we have a fear of being judged or criticized?
Sure. I think the most appropriate way to start the answer to that is to say you are not your work. You are a human being. You have a history, a past, a life. You have a present. You're present right now, and you'll have a future. And the things that you do and the thoughts that you have and where you go, all your good stuff and your bad stuff, does not equal you. And the same is true if you start to think about it, the work you make, especially in a creative capacity where you're trying to experiment and find yourself, connect with other people, put work out into the world, take chances, take risks. If we just glue our identity to whatever we're pushing out in the world, it's really, really easy to, because if you're doing anything, right, of meaning, that's meaningful to you, some people are going to like it, some people are not going to like it. And it's so native and natural to feel that there's us and them, me and you. And when you start to let go of that and realize, all right, look at, I'm going to do what I'm going to do. If I've got this set of goals and I aspire to do these things with these people, and in order to do that, in order to tap into that sort of self-awareness and fulfillment, I can't do it without taking risks, without being judged, I just find it's a very simple tool to disconnect you from the reception and or perceived result of the work.
Yeah.
And so by calling it the work, there's just enough separation. I also use that trick with the brain. So this is not my brain. This is the brain. This is a multi-million-year-old organ. It is not designed to keep you happy. It is designed to keep you safe. And primarily what it's designed to keep you safe from is saber-toothed tigers. They don't exist anymore. So what does our biology do? It says, the number of Instagram likes, that's a saber-toothed tiger. The fact that my boss didn't like my presentation, that's a saber-toothed tiger. And the reality is, those are false.
Yes.
So I just find by realizing that you are not these things, that you can then more easily play with them and observe them,
yes.
like thoughts going past your mind, or just a piece of work that isn't a defining characteristic of who you are forever. And it frees you up a little bit from judgment.
Yeah, I think that self-distancing is so helpful, and we all need that constant reminder.
Yeah.
I think what can help us too, and I'm curious of your take on this, is producing a good volume of work. Because like when you're creating a lot, for me at least, I am less attached to each thing.
Yeah, there's a very, very famous apocryphal story, and I had to look up the word apocryphal when I said, I think this is the right usage.
I'm really happy to hear that, because I'm like, well,
I think I was using the right way when I wrote it, and it basically means like, not even sure if it's true or not.
Yeah.
But it's in the research around creativity and volume of creativity, and it goes like this: there's a pottery class, a ceramics class, and the teacher says, "All right, you're going to divide the class down the middle of the row here. All y'all in this half of the class, your job this semester is to make one beautiful piece of pottery, and y'all on this side, I do not care if it's beautiful. Your job is to make as much as you can. And so you're going to be graded on how beautiful this piece is, and you're going to be graded on the volume of work. Go." And so the study follows this semester of school, and at the end, the results now are not going to surprise you. The group that put all of their effort into one piece and polishing this one masterful thing, they were their quality of their work was far, 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 far below the other group. Not only was the quality of the work higher in the other group, but obviously the volume was, orders of magnitude larger.
Yes.
More, better work was created. And now when you're like, of course, that's just two things. It's repetition.
Yep.
And you're parking your judgment because you're like, I'm just putting the work out there.
That's right.
Yeah, Andy Warhol, it's like, I'm just going to make stuff. And while everyone else is busy judging what I'm going to make, I'm going to go make some more stuff.
That's right.
And to me, that is such a cool thing. And honestly, it's how I feel like I found my footing and my purpose in life. I just tasted a lot of things. I was going to, again, go play pro soccer. I went to a PhD program in philosophy. And then I've done, let's just say I did a bazillion things, latched onto photography and started pursuing it. And then the same is true with every aspect inside of photography. This is how we find our way in the world, is by experimentation. I talk a lot in the book, and I hope this resonates certainly with your audience, because you preach the same thing: action over intellect.
Oh yeah, well,
you cannot think your way out of these problems, people.
I think one of my favorite highlights from the book is actually action is identity. You become what you do. You've got to do the verb to become the noun. And it's so unbelievably direct and so true. And I love that. And it seems so obvious, but I think all of us can get caught up from time to time. I certainly have.
For sure.
Not doing the thing that you want to do.
Yeah, and to me, like that is a, I just want to give a shout out to your book for a second. So congratulations on a masterpiece. It's beautiful, super inspiring. And, we got to go through this process together. You're coming out just a few weeks apart. But like, there's a whole host of these tools that and in part because of timing and culture, and things are moving so quickly, and information wants to be free, and also in part just because of, I think there's a different mentality now, and culture has shifted far enough, not just technologically, but spiritually and emotionally, that there's a whole host of things that we weren't taught. And I don't want to throw rocks at the school system. My wife was a public school teacher for a long time. I think the school system does a good job. But the reality is the school system is sort of, its guidance is a factory. You put people on the conveyor belt, they move through a system, and first grade you learn this, and they expect everybody to be on the same conveyor belt, and they expect everybody to learn the same things. And what do we know about people? Man, we're all over the place, different backgrounds and learning styles and modalities and all that stuff. So no wonder that we weren't well served. We're living the life of the 21st century with, basically 19th century tools.
Absolutely, and understandings and concepts.
And so now we're in this massive transformation, and we should acknowledge that there are still billions of people that don't have drinking water, let alone the internet. And so let's not forget that. There's still work to be done. But we are in an era right now where the tools are stronger and more powerful than ever before. We do not need permission from the gatekeepers. It is the most exciting and opportunistic time in human history to pursue the thing that you want. And I actually believe that it's the riskiest time in the world to play it safe, because the words "play it safe" were coming from a time and a place and a set of circumstances that are not present now. It is not safe to put all your eggs in one basket, go to one school, get one job, have that job for 40 years and get the gold watch. There's the map for that is broken. Someone tore it up and threw it away.
Yep.
And if you are on that path right now, cool, you're one of the last few that are going to be able to do that. Because if we had one job, if our parents had one job, we'll have 5, and the next generation will have 5 at the same time.
Yep.
So that we're just now learning these things, to me, that should be it's so empowering. And if we can change our mindset to adapt that, and then start create these lives, fulfillment, success, those are not found items. You do not find success, even though we use that, and we hope you find success. I'm not a founder of a company. I created the thing. So success is created. Then why then is creativity this whimsical thing that maybe it's sort of naive to pursue it, or risky, or all these things? No. Creativity, to be crystal clear, is the human superpower. It is not only how some things happen, it's how everything happens.
Oh, yes.
Instead of everything is figure outable, the way that it's the same language that I'm using. It's like you are creating the solutions to the biggest problems that you have.
Yep.
And if you strengthen that muscle, yes, baking a cake, playing the guitar, building a business, and writing code, that is the same muscle. And if you work on that, you're going to be able to create your life, just creativity at a different scale.
100%. So I think another thing that can prevent us from following our creative dreams or bringing them to life is a perceived lack of time. And I loved this idea you suggested about using the time machine. Right?
Sure.
So can you walk us through the time machine exercise and how it can help us in traveling back in time to a favorite artist or a creator?
So if you're listening to this, maybe you're jogging right now or sitting on a park bench or at work. I don't know where you're listening, but just go with me for 90 seconds here. Your favorite artist, your favorite piece of art. Maybe it's a band and that favorite album that makes you get up and want to dance, a video game, whatever, just a beautiful thing. And now you can go back in time to the person who created that, and you're watching them sit there and start to create this thing. And then you realize that, wait a minute, what is that thing next to him? Oh, it's an iPhone from the future, and it's got Candy Crush on it. And they pick that thing up and they start whittling away their time. And you're like, no. You have to do this thing. You have to make the thing that you were supposed to make. And then you see something else come along that is a total distraction, and they are. The logical conclusion to this argument is, it's so easy when you see something that you love in the world and you do the thought experiment of going back and connecting with the creator, and to see them be unaware or distracted and potentially be doing things that don't allow them to create their best work. It's very easy for us to say, no, I really want to make sure that you make this thing. If you just focused and did what you were supposed to be doing, what you know in your heart to be true, that you don't even have any ideas the gifts you're going to give the world. And yet, when we run that same thought experiment on ourselves, so many things get in our way. Those bills, they're not going to pay themselves. It's a lot easier if I just stuck it out in this job because I got XYZ bill and XYZ responsibility. And the safe thing to do, the smart thing to do, those are rabbit ears from every other input that you have, would be to do all of the things that I'm supposed to do through culture's lens. And it's so easy to see it for somebody else, so hard to apply that same rubric to ourselves. And that's why I'm an advocate for this, basically two things. One, for people who, I believe that all the answers are inside of you. We go looking in faraway places, and of course experience adds to our own awareness, and we get all these inputs, but the answer to that question, to solving that relationship, to deciding whether to go this way or that way with your next career move or relationship move, all the answers are inside us. And to stop looking just for a second externally, get in touch with yourself and look in. And if you can, this is the calling. It starts out as a whisper, and it's not like, hey dummy, go over here, all the answers are right here. But it's like this, and I think of it in terms of intuition. We're taught to ignore intuition. What if you listen to it? And you start listening to the intuition, and it says, this community that you were part of right there, that's not really serving you. This other one that you're curious about, why don't you go experiment there? This person, this job, this hunch you have, I'll just use yours as an example. I want my book launch event to be the combination of a Beyonce concert and a TED Talk, and if they had a baby and threw a street party, that's what I want it to be. That is a hunch, that is a little intuition. And for the people who have honed their ability to listen to that, those are the people that you are inspired by, that you want to be close to, that you pay attention to. They are just better at listening to that. And like all things, this is a skill that you can develop. And I'm encouraging you to listen to it. And then part B, this is that's the calling part of the title of the book. And then part B is there's a really strong narrative throughout the book about a path. You've also felt what it felt like to be on an amazing path. You were with people, even if it was for a moment, around people that you loved, doing a thing, however fleeting, however short, you've been on that path before. You know what it feels like. I'm just encouraging you to now get on that same thing, listen to those voices, listen to that, and experiment, walk towards that on that path. Take action over just sitting there thinking about it. And that is the key to everything.
Can we talk about the distinction you make, because this is getting a little granular, but I loved it, between a creative and an influencer? I thought this was so wonderful, especially because there's so much push towards are you an influencer, and let's get influencers and X, Y, and Z. So how do you see that distinction?
It creeps me out, honestly. It's like the concept of an influencer, when explained academically, an influencer is someone who has influence. I think what is largely lost on this conversation, or even the concept and the idea, is that how does influence happen? And of course, I've grounded everything in my book around creativity, and so I'd say influence is created, and it takes work, and you must create your ability to have influence. So the next logical question, if you peel the onion, is, well then, what is it that you do? And to me, an influencer, or someone who, if your aspiration is to be an influencer, that is not a thing in and of itself. There is no influencer capsule. Go back to, you've got to be the verb, you got to do the verb to be the noun. You have influence because you are something else. You identify as something, and you create something on a regular basis, and people recognize you for your ability to create that and to stand out and to be unapologetically you. And so this, for anyone out there who is like, I really see on Instagram, I like these travel influencers, it's cool. No, here's what travel influencers do. They are master logicians. They know how to tell a story better than anybody else, and they can put their love for travel, their wisdom around storytelling, and their logical mastery to connect with tour guides and all these other things, and they've put that together in a very specific way such that people are willing to essentially pay them to live their best, most authentic, real selves. That is what an influencer is. An influencer is actually a person, again, peel the layer, who has these attributes and puts them together in a way that only they can, and then people come to participate in that thing that they've become, or that vibe that they've put out, or that story that they've told about who they are. Influence for the sake of influence is fiction.
Yes.
And so if you're, well, I think influence is a nice thing to have in culture because it's also sort of like persuasion, and you can't sell an idea, whether it's the book that you just wrote, Marie, Everything is Figureoutable, or these all had to be packaged and ideas had to be presented. It's like, to me, that's a very, very useful skill. There's no influencer without the ability to package and create and manifest the things that you want to be in the world.
I'm just going to read some of your own words back to you because I love this.
This
No,
is
it's actually
mean
good.
Tweets.
No, it's even a more granular look at this because it's brilliant. Influencers become anything they need to be to hold on to their audience. A creator holds to his or her oath, and the right people come along for the journey. It's just another way to drill down on what you just shared. And I think that that's so important because, you know, when people think about chasing, whether it's the likes or the algorithm or whatever, they do lose the rootedness of what they are there to give or contribute. So I just wanted to thank you for that.
Well, I think this is, it highlights something that, you know, is a theme of the book, which is you can't both stand out and fit in at the same time. So therefore, if you want to stand out and have a remarkable life, even if for your own, you don't need any sort of kudos from anybody else, the only way of truly doing that, and I would say the most effective way, because all the other things that can get you halfway there, seemingly there, is to be unapologetically yourself. And the ability to do that is not a skill that we are taught. And that is part of what I've done in my own life, see where I was successful and where I went wrong, and all of the people like yourself that I've deconstructed their work and said, wait a minute, there's a very simple, repeatable pattern here. And that's why the book has the structure that it does. It's a very simple process, a creative process to either bake a cake or build a life. It's all of the same process. And that's, again, I'll go back to your earlier point about a book. And again, the reason that you wrote your book is because these ideas are out there, but they're just, no one's like put them together in a simple package. And I just tried to assemble it in a way that makes sense, and that was one of the ways of looking at it.
Well, you did such a brilliant job of doing that. And I'm wondering if before we wrap up, before I get to my last question, can you walk us through the IDEA acronym?
Sure,
because
of course.
I love it, and I feel like everyone listening right now will be able to hear it and then start to put it into practice as they get your book and read it.
Great. In thinking about my own life and deconstructing the lives of others, I have not found a way, and this is like, and I mean, I've sat down and talked to Richard Branson. He's an investor in CreativeLive. He's become a mentor. People like Brene, other people that we've mentioned already that I feel like are in our pop culture circle that are easily relatable. And that's why I mentioned those names. These people, what they have done is a very simple and repeatable process. They may have different words for it, different ideas, different labels, but the fact remains that there's a very clear blueprint. And I've named it the IDEA system, IDEA. And the book is based on those 4 parts. The first part, I, for imagine. The second part, D, for design. E, for execute. And then A, for amplify. I'm going to go through them really quickly. Imagine. Now, in the same way we haven't been taught a lot of things, we were really not taught to imagine without all of the limitations. We were taught to be practical. We were taught that you need to think a certain way and you need to figure in the economics, all these things out in front. But I can tell you that Steve Jobs did not come up with the idea for the iPhone by looking at everything else exclusively and then doing another one of those things. He said, like, what if we took some of these constraints away? What if, like, blank slate, blue ocean, blue sky, whatever the kind of thinking, we're not really trained in that thought. So I'm asking you to truly imagine for yourself. And this works whether you're baking a cake or you're living your life. Like, what is truly unencumbered? If you could write it down in 3 sentences or 5 sentences, what would you write down? Imagine. So there's a set of tools for doing that. D, design. Okay, let's go back to Steve Jobs and the iPhone. It's a little bit of a tired, cliched example, but I'm just going to go with it. In order to produce that thing, they had to make a plan, right? Here's how we're gonna manufacture it, here's the materials, and then they had to create a set of habits. We're gonna have reviews on this timeline. We're going to do all these things. They did design a system. And the same is true for your personal goals, whether you want to get fit for your dance show or anything. Design a set of habits and a set of systems, really, that if you did these things, will get you as close to possible as to the thing you imagined. So D, design. E, execute. This is a pretty practical thing, but we talk a lot about it in the book because it's the getting shit done.
Yes,
right?
That action piece, baby.
Totally, and I love that how much you love that, and I'm all about that action, boss. And it's required, and I'm a huge advocate of action over intellect, as I've already mentioned. So E is execute, and then A, I think, is the most misunderstood of all the pieces, because you can oh yeah, that's kind of how you build a house. You're like, what do I want it to look like? How many bedrooms? And then you got to draw a plan, and then you execute the plan. But here's the thing that's different between building a house and architecting the life that you want for yourself. And it is the A piece, the amplify piece. Because see if you follow me here. You have put, let's just say, dozens or hundreds of hours into something, whether it's a prezzo for work or a piece of art you're going to put out in the world or a new course you're going to release or whatever. You spend all this time and energy, and you're looking at what other people are doing, and you've tuned into yourself, and this is the thing I'm supposed to do, and then you put it out there in the world, and what happens? Crickets.
Nothing.
Tumbleweeds.
Worst feeling in the world.
Worst feeling in the world. And A is the solution. The amplify part of the book is the solution. What it really is a roadmap for community. And it's the most misunderstood thing, because most people who, if the way that we get information on the internet, TV, whatever, you don't get to see all of the other pieces of it. And the pieces that I think are of the most important, doing good work, that's a given. That's the get in the door fee. You have to do good work. But of all the other pieces that are missing, people don't realize that the success that is manifested when someone you admire puts something out in the world is because they've been working on community for years. And it takes many different forms. Some are communities that you join. If you're an actor and you never go to acting school and you don't know any other directors and you aren't in Hollywood and it's gonna be really hard. So if you're not joining and participating in other communities that are doing things that you're doing and are like-minded and like-spirited, so I think this is a really important piece. And then part two of that, there are communities that you join, and then there are communities that you create around your work. That is such that when you do put something out, that someone cares.
Yeah.
And this is the fabric of, I think, modern culture. And this is where I think community and the internet and the tools, the social networks, all these things are misunderstood as vanity metrics or they're toys. That's true. You can look at them and they can be those things, but they also can be 50% or part of the equation for creating community. You have a community that is worldwide. I was on the way in this morning in the car getting messages from South Africa, from Ireland, from Pakistan. I can't get your book in Pakistan.
Yes. Amazing.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
And what we've done is we're just building community in order to receive the work that we want to put out in the world. I actually advocate that that's 50% of the work that you need to be doing. And most people, they would say that, the saying goes, cream rises to the top. You make great stuff, and this is what your teacher told you in 8th grade. You make great stuff, it bubbles to the top.
Oh, hell no.
Can't be further from the truth. And even and then you say, but you got to promote it. No. If you're just creating and promoting, that whole thing is only half the pie. Because promoting it, people are only going to pay attention when you promote something if they are attuned to you or the work or the style of the work or the genre, or that you have to give them a reason to care about you rather than someone else.
Yeah. I love it. I mean, the book is brilliant. Congratulations. I know how much work went into it.
You and me both. We're weeping on the phone to each other oh my God.
Yeah, but you did. It's just a really incredible book. So everyone listening right now, you have to go get and check out Creative Calling. I love it too because it's so applicable. You don't need to quit your job and become a photographer.
Yeah, this is not about a beret. Don't need to move to Paris. No new set of clothes. No new friends. Nothing. It's available to you immediately. And it's just about finding the way that it's authentic to you, tapping into that personal power, and unleashing it to the world.
So as we wrap up, for someone listening right now who's on the verge and they're believing what we're saying, but they've got that little bit of fear that maybe they're not creative, what's the one message we want to leave them with today?
Creativity is absolutely inside of every person. You've been told a lie, that some people receive it, some people don't, some people have it, and other people were excluded. There is no club for creativity. It is foundational to who we are as a species, and it's okay that you have come as far as you have, not thinking you're creative. But I want you to own the words. Just it's okay to say it, and we're in a new era where creativity is seen as possibility. Creativity is the new literacy. Creativity is the thing that will get you from where you are to where you want to be. In fact, it's the only thing that will get you there.
Thank you so much for being a friend. Thank you so much for this body of work and CreativeLive and everything else that you do, and making the time today in this super busy time for you to share your thoughts and your heart and your dreams and your work with our audience. Love you.
Thank you. Love you too. So grateful. Love your book as well. It's a masterpiece. And I think the themes are, you've really come at it from a practical, figure-outable. I came at it through a creativity lens. And I think there's so much similarity, which
is awesome.
Yeah, that tells us, I think we're onto something. And it's a new opportunity for humanity to both explore who we are and who we want to be, and then a set of tools to get us there.
So if you enjoyed today's interview, as always, the best conversations happen over at the magical land of marieforleo.com. So head on over there and leave a comment now. And while you're there, be sure to subscribe to our email list and become an MF Insider. You'll get exclusive content, some special giveaways, and some personal updates from me that I just don't share anywhere else. Stay on your game and keep going for your creative dreams, because the world really does need that special gift that only you have. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you next time on the Marie Forleo Podcast. Hey, you having trouble bringing your dreams to life? Well, guess what? The problem isn't you. It's not that you're not hardworking or intelligent or deserving. It's that you haven't yet installed the one key belief that will change it all. Everything is Figureoutable. It's my new book, and you can order it now at everythingisfigureoutable.com.